So we'll move on to 6.2. It's the 30-year financial plan presentation. As the City of Moncton considers the potential development of a downtown sports and entertainment center, Council has identified the need for a 30-year financial plan to assist in the process of their decision-making. While this document has been updated to consider the potential financial implications of the proposed development, it is a snapshot in time with information that represents the best information available to staff today. The recommendation before Council this evening is that Council receive the 30-year financial plan as information. Mr. Martin is here to do the presentation.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors. Tonight I have the pleasure of presenting our updated 30-year financial plan. We developed our first 30-year plan in 2011, and this model is a continuation of that document, with actual results reported for 2011 and 2012. For 2013, we have used our budget, and figures for 2014 through 2041 are projected. The purpose of this project was to update our long-term financial plan to demonstrate full implementation of our corporate strategies, and second, the financial feasibility of the proposed downtown center development. This financial plan incorporates the scenarios described by the city manager at the last public meeting. This is an assumption-based plan. With the Strategic Management Group, we've reviewed and updated in excess of 70 assumptions, considering overall issues, economic and growth, capital requirements, infrastructure requirements, revenues, operating expenses, tax rate, debt, and reserves. All of these assumptions have been fully loaded into the projections commencing in 2014. This plan represents an estimate of the potential results over 30 years based on these assumptions. The key assumptions included in the plan are as follows. Council priorities for both capital and operating requirements have been incorporated into the development of the plan. The business model considers that the construction of the facility is planned to commence in 2015 and be completed in early 2017. It assumes a design build, short-term finance arrangement during construction, and that the city would acquire in 2017 a turnkey operation with short-term financing included in the capital cost of the project. The business model for the operation of the downtown center will be a consolidated operation of three components. The three components will include the newly constructed downtown center, the Moncton Coliseum, and Tickets Moncton. The downtown center and the Moncton Coliseum will be operated under a common management to achieve economies of scale and to maximize revenues while managing costs in an efficient manner. Tickets Moncton will be a standalone operating unit that will be responsible for selling of tickets to all events within each of the operating facilities as well as other venues. The newly constructed downtown center will be an entertainment facility for major junior hockey, concerts, family shows, sporting events, and other community events. Within this facility, there will be numerous departments, including food and beverage operations and administrative functions. The Moncton Coliseum will be the hub of trade shows and exhibitions and will continue recreational ice during the winter season. The capital plan in this scenario is based on all-in gross capital budget of $105 million expressed in 2017 dollars. The all-in capital plan assumes acquiring a full-cost asset, including land, buildings, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, short-term financing, etc. Funding to support this capital is anticipated to come from the governments of Canada and New Brunswick in the amounts of approximately $23,850,000 each, with an additional $10 million coming from a capital fundraising campaign. In addition, the city plans to contribute approximately $10 million from reserves to support the land acquisition. The next key assumption relates to the timing of the project. The city manager recently presented this slide to council, demonstrating the various stages of the development. This schedule presumes construction starting sometime in 2015 and the facility opening early in 2017. The anticipated funding support is a very important component of this project. As I previously mentioned, this particular scenario has been developed considering capital funding support of $67,700,000. This is based on an anticipated $23,850,000 from each of the federal and provincial governments. In addition, the capital fundraising campaign of $10 million and the city investment of $10 million from its reserves. Now, all of those contributions will be applied against the total capital cost of the facility. So what that will do is it would reduce our borrowing requirements. We're also anticipating funding from a variety of sources in order to support the overall operating cost. We anticipate downtown Moncton contributing $250,000 per year for a 15-year period. The Hotel Association plans to contribute $700,000 per year for 15 years. The committee chaired by Councillor Hicks and Jim Lockyer recommended that the property tax received from the casino development be applied to this project, and we are anticipating that the annual savings from the new policing contract will be applied also. This plan proposes increasing capital from operating by 4% per year to stay on pace with the capital program. In addition, annual contributions are planned to increase capital from operating contributions to reach a projected 1/3 of the gross capital plan by 2041. As part of our strategy to reduce the infrastructure deficit, we have enhanced our recapitalization levels within the capital budget. So recapitalization refers to reinvesting in our existing assets in order to maintain them in good condition. This plan shows that our capital plan has a high recapitalization ratio over the life of the plan. The left portion of this slide demonstrates the impact of the reinvestment in the police station, and the large drop happens as a result of acquiring the downtown center. As in any plan, there are risks, and these risks need to be understood and considered so that if they do occur, they can be addressed promptly. I've identified what I consider the key risks that you should be aware of. The first key risk that I would like to bring to your attention relates to the funding contributions required. As I previously indicated, this particular scenario is reliant on significant capital and operating fund recoveries. We're planning to receive $67.7 million from various capital sources and approximately $3.5 million annually to apply to the operational cost of the facility. The next key risk relates to the operating profitability. This model assumes the bottom line results as proposed in the Senior Management Business Plan presented in 2010. That document was developed based on the IBI report and the work completed by the committee co-chaired by Councillor Hicks and Jim Lockyer. These plans were based on a city-operated model. Any deviation from this approach would require further evaluation. The three key numbers that I would like to bring to your attention are: first, the facility is presumed to have an ongoing operating loss from operations of approximately $1 million per year in the early years. In addition to the loss from operations, the operating deficit increases when you factor in debt cost and life cycle replacement cost. This increases the total operating loss to nearly $4.5 million per year. What is critical to this operating scenario and makes it palatable are the funding recoveries from the Hotel Association, from DMCI, the dedicated property tax, and investing the savings from the police contract in the project. Another key risk is the assessment risk. As the city manager indicated in his presentation, we have estimated an initial lift of approximately $250 million from new development initiated as a result of this project. We are presuming a 4% increase in assessment per year subsequent to this initial lift. The fragile state of the provincial economy is a concern to us. We have seen a reduction in the unconditional grant and will see further reductions over the next couple of years. In addition, we are restricted in our ability to raise revenues, and we may see further cuts in revenues, programs, or increased downloading of programs and services. With regards to interest rates, especially long-term capital rates, we have estimated 5% over the life of the plan. And finally, we have assumed the city index in all revenues and expenditures at various levels from 2.2 to 4% over the life of the plan. Any significant changes in these assumptions may have an impact on the overall financial plan. As for results, we have prepared a capital projection, a reserve projection, an infrastructure deficit projection, a debt projection, an operating projection. We've considered impacts on assessment and tax rates and have done some work on property tax risk analysis. An important issue for council to consider as they evaluate this plan is the concept of the time value of money. Simply put, over time, the impacts of inflation erode our purchasing power. The examples here are illustrative of the changes between 1981 and 2011. To further illustrate my point, we have prepared this slide from the presentation. Column A represents the 2011 values in this plan for the various items listed. Column B represents the same items in the plan at the same level reflected in $2,041. Column C converts column B to $2,011. Consequently, reserves in 2011 were $6.5 million. In 2041, they are projected to be $104 million, or reflected in 2011 dollars, they would be approximately $35 million. The gross capital budget in 2011 was approximately $30 million. In 2041 dollars, it would be approximately $90 million. And converting that back to 2011 dollars, it would be approximately $30 million. And the infrastructure deficit and the outstanding debt are reflected on the same basis. So I'll show you some of the results that we've seen in the plan. The first one is the reserves. We have strong reserves, and we will have strong reserves. The blue line on this slide represents the predicted growth in reserves using future dollars. The green line indicates the change in constant 2011 dollars. So just as I showed you a second ago, we've taken those numbers and we rolled out the inflation and brought it back to constant dollars. So what the graph shows is that the plan is providing for steady growth in our reserves over the 30 years. And again, that's steady growth based on current dollars. Now, this slide, I want to show you the changes in reserve by type. The general operating reserves, by their nature, will fluctuate on an annual basis. The main growth in the reserve will be the capital reserve, and primarily in the items highlighted in orange. The unrestricted capital reserve will be available for any special projects or other capital requirements that may arise. And the facility lifecycle reserve will be used to perform major capital maintenance on our facilities. Any draws required from these reserves will not affect the tax rate. This slide shows the change in our capital budget over the duration of the plan. The blue line is in future dollars, and the green line has been converted to 2011 dollars. The major spike reflects the acquisition of the downtown center in 2017. What this slide is showing is that our gross capital spending level subsequent to the acquisition of the downtown center will remain constant over the life of the plan. Now this slide is in the same format as the blue and green lines. And what it clearly demonstrates is that the infrastructure deficit will be reduced. This is based on our capital plan, our recapitalization plan, and the prudent use of reserves. It is important for us to realize we will always have an infrastructure deficit. Every time we develop a new asset, that asset will immediately start contributing to an infrastructure deficit. What is important is that we're managing our assets and ensuring that we're dealing with renewal and replacement in a planned and scheduled manner. This slide shows the planned change in our debt. On a comparative basis, looking at the green line, you can clearly see that debt is predicted to drop. And as a result of debt dropping, we'll see a significant improvement in our projected debt ratio. We see the debt ratio improving to approximately 10.4% in this scenario based on the assumptions that we've developed. That's the potential predicted place where the debt ratio would end up over the life of the plan. This slide demonstrates what assessment change would be required for full implementation of the financial plan, including the downtown center commencing in 2017. What we are estimating is that it would fluctuate roughly between 4 and 5% per year commencing in 2017. So what I mean by that is that's what would be required to pay our share of the downtown center and also implement the various council priorities and strategies of the corporation. This is the assessment change that we have built the plan on. You can see that we started 6.3 in 2011, which was the actual, and then we see it slipping a bit each year, which we have. And as mentioned in the city manager's presentation, we have factored in a boost of $250 million in assessment due to the development of the downtown center, and this is where you can see the lift. And subsequently, for the life of the plan, we have estimated a conservative, consistent 4% change in assessment on an annual basis. Putting the last two slides together shows the times when there may be some tax risk, and that would be the gap between the orange line and the purple line on top, and the one that drops down a little bit was when we could make up some ground. So basically we had what we thought we would need, which would be the anticipated, and then we put in, that would be the required, then we put in what we would anticipate. So you can see there are some opportunities there. Now, potentially this would be mitigated by modifying some of the assumptions at the time, or if the assessment was stronger than 4% or different than 4%. There may also be opportunities to manage some of the risks through the reserve accounts. The tax impact of fully implementing this plan is approximately 10 cents over the life of the plan. The downtown center's net contribution, based on the assumptions included in the plan, is projected to cost 1 cent. Implementing all of the other strategies will create a tax risk of an estimated 9 cents. And one of the key contributors to this risk is our revenues. As you can see from this graph, our revenue structure shifts dramatically over the life of the plan. Given that our unconditional grant is reducing and presumed to be frozen, the fact that we are restricted on our own source revenue sources, there appears to be an increased burden on our property tax requirements. This slide indicates that the property tax share of our revenue requirements will shift from 82 to 93% of our total revenue. Now, this is certainly an area that we're going to have to work together with the province in order to assist how we can improve on funding our ratios and bringing us to more traditional levels of tax required. In conclusion, Your Worship, based on the plan presented, Council can achieve current Council priorities and corporate strategies. The Downtown Centre project, as described in the assumptions outlined in the various studies and reviews completed to this date, should be achievable, and the potential impact on the property tax rate should be reasonable in the short term and manageable over the long term. As I indicated, the plan should be achievable. What will be required from Council is to make this plan a key priority and a commitment to the various elements as described in the assumptions. It will also require flexibility in its implementation. And as I indicated in the key risks and throughout the presentation, it will also require discipline. Finally, the plan will require annual updates in order to consider current realities and changes in assumptions. Your Worship, this concludes my presentation of the 30-year plan.